men are scum, men will hurt you, men are evil, men are monsters. I grew up in California. I heard this messaging for decades. Women are so afraid of letting go that they're strangling men to death. I think that men are really, really getting tired of that and walking away. So as long as men keep working and paying taxes, the system continues.
Like a whole generation of women with men that don't want to connect. The way that they're going about it is to just attack men, putting themselves first in line, which means that these men are last in line. If we can't figure that out, it's going to be a collapse down to a lower level that probably won't be all that comfortable.
Now, we talked about the stuff that women are doing wrong, but also a lot of the men out there, like, what are you guys doing?
Hello, I've been meaning to post this video for a long time. I wanted to go through it and cut it up like I did with PsyOps, but I just don't have the time. So I'm posting it just the way it appears on Adam's channel with this short introduction. I did not know Adam Lane Smith before he reached out to me. I think we did this interview in November, and since then I've been following him and I cannot recommend him highly enough. Adam provides the same unbiased analysis you would expect from me, but with a wealth of knowledge I do not have about attachment styles and how to heal them. In the same way that I am a consciousness expert, Adam is an attachment expert. A lot of people seem to think that their attachment style is like their astrology chart, like you're born with it, and that is not true. If you are anything other than secure, if you're any of these, you are damaged and you have to work on it. Pretty much every video that I've ever made where I criticize women, I'm either pointing out that they're immature or that they're brainwashed or that they have a bad attachment style or a personality disorder. So Adam has a big piece of the puzzle. I just wanted you to know that before the video. Here it is.
Why is society so broken? Why are men walking away? And why are women so scared? A lot of you guys out there have asked these questions in our comment sections, and we've tried to address them. But you've also asked me to talk to a creator named Homath. We brought him on here today to talk about these challenges, but also to talk about his own attachment journey. And as he has grown from anxious, well, to something else. Homath's material is very controversial online, so a lot of you have been asking for this matchup to see if he and I will rip each other apart. Homath, welcome to the show. What do you usually talk to your audience about? Because I love a lot of the work that you do over here on my side. I've seen quite a bit of it. How would you like to kick this off? Because I think that society and dating is an absolute mess right now, but I think it can be fixed.
Yeah, for sure. So a lot of the work that I do is responsive. So when I started off, I was only making stitches on TikTok, which are just responses to, crazy videos of girls complaining about, annoying stuff. And people would ask me, can you explain this? Can you explain this? Can you explain this? And I did, 8 of those a day or so for a few months until I got popular. Now that I have the audience, I'm able to dig into deeper topics, and I'm using the Aquil integral theory from Ken Wilber to explain different ways of thinking, and I'm applying it to larger sociological phenomenon. And I would summarize what I do as I want to talk about where the world is going in terms of masculinity and femininity, how men and women relate to each other, and how that is a cornerstone of what culture does and how it's predictive of what culture becomes. So where we're going as people, and this is an unprecedented time. The world is more connected than ever. We got people flying all over the place and talking to each other instantly on WhatsApp from China. The amount that we are connected right now, what happens in Western dating culture is going to, the patterns that it creates are going to be exported to the rest of the world. And we can see that happening. We see that happening in China and South Korea. South Korea got it really bad. We see it happening in India. It's just, America is the culture generator of the world. So if we don't figure this out and start setting a pattern for everyone else, it could cause some real problems that might take millennia to get fixed or could never get fixed.
Yeah, South Korea in particular is on the pathway to basically absolute population collapse. They have, if I remember right, the lowest birth rate in the entire world. Japan is not far beyond them. Elon Musk was tweeting about Japan just absolutely collapsing over the next few years. I know their aging population is getting really out of control, and it's just a lot of older people who need care and very, very few younger people able to manage it. Plus, men are checking out at massive rates in their society. Women are delaying, not just delaying, but completely doing away with any and all ideas of marriage or childbirth in any way, shape, or form. It almost looks like they're even ahead of us in some of those destructive patterns. Would you say
Yeah.
that, Homath?
Yeah, I mean, I haven't looked into it deeply enough. I haven't figured out the South Korea situation in a high enough degree of resolution to talk about it at an expert level. But from what I hear, it sounds like the South Korean men are becoming really, really right wing compared to everybody else. They're having the strongest reaction of anybody to what's going on, and the whole 4B movement came out of South Korea, which is basically, it's the same thing that they talked about in all those Greek plays from thousands of years ago, where when things get weird, the women just go, well, we're not going to have sex with you or have children with you anymore. And there's a separating of men and women because they can't negotiate what they want from one another and from society.
I think that was that Liz Estrada?
I think so, yeah. There was another one called Assembly Women, and I don't know.
The idea is that
there seems
basically
to be-
if women stop having sex with men, then they can gain control of everything and make the men act civilized is basically the concept.
Yeah, if the men simp hard enough, which is, not, I don't think that that's the problem. I don't think that's the issue because I made a recent video called Crisis, where I talk about the maturity crisis. And basically my conclusion is that, so Lawrence Kohlberg studied the development of morals. He studied developmental psychology in morality in particular, and he divided it up into 6 levels. What he found is that the average Western man grows to the 4th level, which he calls law and order morality, in adulthood, where they pretty much stay. Most people stay there. And the average woman only grows to the 3rd level, which is good boy, good girl morality. So the good boy, good girl morality has this tone of it that's like, we should do what is nice so that other people are nice. You should, it's like it graduates from the selfish self-interest level where everything is about what I can get for myself to, oh, I can get things for myself better if I'm nice to others. So if I'm nice, then people will be nice back. And when you graduate from that level, you basically are learning, well, sometimes you're nice and people are not nice back. So you have to kind of just lay down the law. You have to have sets of rules and you have to have order. And that's usually the role that men play in society. And the good girl morality is usually the role that women play, which is really good for raising children and being a school teacher and stuff like that. But it's not so good for, international global politics, because you can take all the money and all the power from a powerful nation and be nice to the world with it. And if they're not nice back, then you destroy your civilization. And what's happening right now is that men, because the only option that they have to participate in the market is simping, they are staying at that lower level. Men are not graduating to the law and order morality. And so they're all staying at the good boy level and virtue signaling and doing things that just fundamentally don't work. When you have a maturity problem like that, where people are not growing up, it changes the entire structure of society. The Western world and all of the technology and all of the economic prosperity that we have, that we value, that everything we value is based on a lot of people functioning at that higher level. And if they're not going to do it, then we're not going to keep it.
And where do you think that's coming from?
Where do I think what's coming from? The lower level of...
So this idea that men are coming in and they're basically being intentionally weakened, is this coming from social media? Is this coming from the education side? Where's that coming from?
I think it's coming from all of those directions at once. I think that's, it's a really sharp question when you explain it that way. I think that it is... I love conspiracy theories, and I love looking out for bad actors and people who spread these ideas on purpose. I think that there might be some of that, but I think that a lot of it is just generally the weakness that comes with being spoiled, and people think that the gravy train is never going to stop. They take things for granted. I think Elon Musk said that if you don't make stuff, you can't have stuff. And I think people don't realize that. I think that they think that politics is about sharing snacks. It's about, well, you have more snacks and they have less snacks, so let's just share it and spread it around. And it's like, but you're not listening to the people who are making them about if you just take all their stuff away and share it, that they're not going to want to keep doing that. So once you have that that established, that you're no longer giving to the creators of value in society what they need to keep creating, it's created this tension between people who are disconnected from that and people who their values rely on it, and it creates, what we're calling a culture war, where there are people who sort of get it that we can't slip into this lower level, and people who think that it's, there are people who like genuinely believe that communism is the solution, despite the fact that we've tried that already. And it leaks into everywhere from that. So whether or not it's coming from a higher level, whether or not there are people sitting around in boardrooms like, how do we make them believe the wrong thing and destroy the country? Because, there are people who do that. I'm sure that there are. I know intelligence agencies have ways that they manipulate societies like that. But whether or not that's where it's coming from, like the origin doesn't necessarily matter, but it comes through media, it comes through education. I remember when I was in college, I was fed all of that stuff, and I was taught that that's the next level of thinking, whereas it was actually the previous level. And I would, give fuller answers on my exams and get points off because it's like, oh no, we're not considering any of that as a part of reality. So it's been institutionalized for a really long time. And yeah, it's coming through. Social media makes it, I don't know what's the right word for it, but it's so much more direct and therefore so much more personal and therefore so much more believable. It gets installed so much quicker when you're flipping through TikTok and you see all these things that are the algorithm has designed for you, rather than turning on like The Simpsons at 8 p.m. and watching the same thing as everyone else. You're watching your own little thing. So people are getting their beliefs changed in different directions really quickly, which you can see on those charts. I wish I had drawn it beforehand, but you have those charts of like women suddenly getting more liberal and then men getting a little more conservative, except for South Korea, which goes like that. But yeah, it's coming from everywhere all at once.
Hey guys, just pause for a second. I know that here on this program, we talk a lot about attachment issues and about fixing them and how great that feels. But I know that a lot of you in the comment sections have told me that you feel overwhelmed and intimidated at the idea of trying to go through and fix your attachment challenges. Some of you are in relationships and you don't know how to help your partner repair their attachment, share their feelings, and be more connected to you in a productive and loving way. For those of you out there who are struggling, I want you to know that we offer a special program designed to work with you on a strict schedule, even if you only have an hour a week. The Attachment Repair Program is designed to help us, all of us certified attachment specialists inside the program, walk with you through your journey on a measured step-by-step process for fixing your attachment issues. This is great for individuals or for couples who are wanting to overcome their attachment issues and never be haunted by those problems ever again. So if you're afraid of rejection, if it's hard to share your needs, and if you're feeling stuck and nothing else has worked, join the Attachment Repair Program today, and let's work together on building a great relationship for the rest of your life.
Yeah, it's really interesting for us because we get so many inquiries from the relationship standpoint into Adam, into his coaching practice, into his business. And we had this very strange spike in the last maybe 2 months just before the elections. And then right after the elections, we were running some sales and they're still continuing for him for his services and for courses. But we had a lot of very anxious women coming in, specifically with a lot of what seemed to be kind of irrational kind of fears and complaints in their attachment. All of a sudden, they felt very unsafe, and they were feeling not unsafe with the men, which was a very common narrative we heard before, but they were feeling unsafe in society in general. It's almost like something has shifted, and it was in the last maybe 6 months that this became really apparent, and it drove just piles and piles of people in. I was wondering if that's maybe something that has to do with the general state of the world. Maybe it's something that's having to do with dating trends. I'm kind of curious what you guys think about that.
Yeah, sure. So, I mean, do you have any more specifics about like what is it that they're saying they feel unsafe about?
Yeah, Adam, you get to see
Yeah.
a lot of those people.
So generally speaking, what I'm seeing is a tremendous number of women coming in saying, my life is so uncertain. There is so much financial instability.
Hmm.
The world seems scary. Many of the things that classically the masculine men of the tribe, so to speak, of the hunter gatherers would have been pushing back on, creating insulation against the women in the core of the tribe having to face those
Yeah.
external threats. So they're feeling just a sense of existential dread is what a lot of women are facing, and it's strange. Just like you don't find too many atheists in a foxhole, you don't find too many feminists in a social collapse. It's been a very similar phenomenon, and a lot of women are starting to push. The common theme I'm hearing on TikTok, for example, is I'm angry because I'm always in my masculine
Hmm.
energy, and men are not in their masculine energy. So I have to be masculine and out masculine him, and that is I to your point earlier. And to your question earlier, Andre, I grew up in California through the public school system, and then I went to college in the school system in California, and it was just endless messaging of boys rule, girls rule, boys are scum. The future is female is the new thing that they've launched at LucasArts and Lucasfilm with Star Wars. It was just this decades of messaging about how men are subhuman scum and
Yeah.
women are intelligent, and that has filtered through. Men are definitely stepping back.
And yet, you know what was really interesting? The biggest trend we saw this year is an absolute interest from anxious women in avoidant men. That is the
Yes,
top of every piece of content we've
they're
sold.
rushing to avoidant
Yeah,
men.
Adam has a course on how to love an avoidant man that has been selling like crazy because all of a
Mm,
sudden they want to understand how to be one with a masculine man and they're ready to do anything for it.
Hyper-masculine man who
Yeah.
doesn't care what anybody else thinks at all.
And that is the demand of 2024. A ton of people are coming in. There's men coming in specifically asking to be masculine. We actually had to launch an attachment repair program for them. There's women coming in begging to learn how to deal with men so that they don't get triggered by it. And there's almost like this interest in coming back to very traditional role models.
Well, they're saying they're interested.
So
They're
they
saying, and
claim.
they're putting the money there. They're trying to do some work.
Yeah.
I'm eager to see if that trend continues. Homath, I'm curious if you saw what I think some of the research said, which is during this last election cycle, a lot of the young men, the Gen Z and even toward Gen Alphas, I think
Mm.
they're reporting a hard shift, even here in America, that's matching South Korea of much more traditionalism. And women, they're not into traditionalism, but they did veer. The younger women veered quite a bit away from the more liberal policies and did have a conservative, well, not a conservative bend, but a moderate bend, we should say, toward
Yeah.
the middle. They bent toward the middle, men bent toward the
Now
thing. Yeah,
deemed
that
almost
scale that I'm
conservative.
seeing right there that you're drawing, they did say, I think, in the last few months that has actually slightly improved, I think. Correct me if I'm
you're
wrong.
seeing this sort of turnaround.
A little bit, where women are turning toward the middle and men are turning a little bit harder, but mostly in the youngest people is what I have seen.
Yeah, so that's really interesting. Like, I definitely, the Trump victory just in the last month, I've seen tons and tons of, not like the crazy blue-haired liberal women, but um, the more normal, moderate ones who have been shifting left for a while. Once they saw that people really didn't want to keep going that direction, it made them reevaluate things. And, when Trump got shot in the ear, whether or not whatever you believe about that, it all seems to kind of be making them a bit more moderate, except for the ones that are already too far gone, which are just continuing to go like this. They're all shaving their heads and whatnot. It would be great to have numbers on that, how many of them are going harder and how many of them are becoming more moderate. But yeah, that's what I would expect to happen when society makes a declaration about like that about where it intends to go. Women are, much more likely to be followers once they hear what are the messages coming to them from every direction. I thought it was really interesting what you said about you're saying that women are specifically asking how to relate to avoidant men. Was that it?
Yep.
In particular, yep.
Yeah, that's
And
probably about 60% of traffic for us right now.
are they using that language, or are you just
Mm-hmm.
so they're coming in and
Exactly that
saying avoidant
language.
men? Okay.
Define
Um,
avoidant men for us, Adam.
Avoidant men.
Yeah.
So
yeah, I
for
want to go
anyone,
into that.
yeah, for anyone who doesn't know, so attachment styles, in a society or in a family where stability is shaken up and you learn early on that people are not likely to work with you in a secure fashion and be connected with you, solve problems collaboratively with you, you can split in one of two ways. There you go, attachment styles. Thank you. With the avoidant attachment style in particular, you tend to believe that other people are unpredictable, arbitrary, unsafe. So you form a protective barrier against other people where you will make decisions on your own. You push back on other people's perception. You might work to look outwardly pleasing, but you don't have low self-esteem. You have decent self-esteem, and you are primarily focused on survival at pretty much any cost. The other flip is anxious attachment, which women tend to have. It's an inferiority complex. It's collapsing into that sort of feeling.
Yeah. Okay. So do you think that men are becoming more avoidant, or women are more attracted to avoidant men, or what's causing that shift?
What I think is avoidant behavior, it's primarily masculine. And I think that it's an adaptation that humanity has had since the beginning. During hard times, when weak men have created hard times, or a catastrophe, or whatever it may be, we don't have time to be sympathetic. We don't have time to be sentimental. So we go into an active protective mode where it's almost like a childhood trauma. Your sympathetic nervous system is activated. It blocks oxytocin receptors so you don't get emotional, sentimental connection. You become cortisol focused and then dopamine focused to manage that. And it really does turn off your desire to even try to collaborate much with other people. It's a very strong survival benefit. The research shows that it could be an advantageous adaptation also for a group if they're able to ally with an avoidant man, because he's hyper focused on risk and protection. So it's something that activates during societal collapse, during massive problems where everything is falling apart and you can't rely on anyone. And I'm not surprised that women might be seeking out those men, especially if the same women are seeing a shift toward anxious attachment and they're feeling the collapse. They're feeling that I saw a meme the other day that said, ladies, it's time to ask yourself if your man is warlord material for the post-apocalyptic fall. We're getting there. We're getting there.
Yeah, I've been seeing some of that myself. And I'm feeling that. So the way that you're describing it is really spot on with, like, I've seen myself make that shift. As you described the neurotransmitters and everything. It's like, yeah, the messages I've been receiving from society and the experiences I've had have definitely made me feel a little bit more like having that wall up is the only possible solution to the problem. Because the more that you are cooperative and the more that you're associated with people, the more you lose. And yeah, I can see how that would create the anxious style as well, because then you have like a whole generation of women with men that don't want to connect.
Hey guys, just pause for a second. I know that here on this program, we talk a lot about attachment issues and about fixing them and how great that feels. But I know that a lot of you in the comment sections have told me that you feel overwhelmed and intimidated at the idea of trying to go through and fix your attachment challenges. Some of you are in relationships and you don't know how to help your partner repair their attachment, share their feelings, and be more connected to you in a productive and loving way. For those of you out there who are struggling, I want you to know that we offer a special program designed to work with you on a strict schedule, even if you only have an hour a week. The Attachment Repair Program is designed to help us, all of us certified attachment specialists inside the program, walk with you through your journey on a measured step-by-step process for fixing your attachment issues. This is great for individuals or for couples who are wanting to overcome their attachment issues and never be haunted by those problems ever again. So if you're afraid of rejection, if it's hard to share your needs, and if you're feeling stuck and nothing else has worked, join the Attachment Repair Program today, and let's work together on building a great relationship for the rest of your life. If Vikings raid your village and take you away, women are going to survive more if they collapse into that, blame themselves, become approval seeking, and surrender their identity to whoever is going to be around them, to the good girl point, to the level 3 morality. Whereas men are going to survive if they can focus on law and order, but also focus on hardcore survival, don't emotionally connect to anybody else, and just ruthlessly survive as they need to, whether it's more ethical focused, whether they're more manipulative, there's arguments on that. But to be ruthlessly surviving and then to have those women come along and say, please just take care of me, I'll do anything. That seems to be that breakdown. And along with that, we're seeing a rise of that from the boomers, where maybe 35% insecure, Millennials are about 50% insecure attachment styles. And then Gen Z, the estimates are about 65% attachment issues, with only 35% being secure. Personality disorders on the rise from an estimated maybe 5 to 10% of women, decades ago, to now about 15 to 20% of women with personality disorders now that we're seeing. It's definitely a societal collapse that our machines are keeping us running, even as we as a society have collapsed.
Sure, societal collapse, but one that's happening without actual, disaster happening in society. There's no civil war, there's no famine, right? There's no war. There isn't, anything else that's a cataclysm. But for some reason, we're already acting as
We're
if there was.
responding as if there has. Our system is detecting it.
Yeah, so our system is detecting it, and our children are becoming adapted in advance. It's almost like we're planning ahead to prevent some major, major pain or major trauma.
Or reacting as if we're in the rubble of a society, which is really what the young people, Gen Z and Gen Alpha, they're like growing up in what they feel like is cultural rubble, and it is. They're not able to pair bond. They're not able to form functioning families. A lot of that is falling apart, and we're seeing that. But yet, to your point, I mean, the other meme is nothing ever happens. Nothing ever happens. No matter what disaster we creep up on, the Bay of Pigs or nuclear missile crisis, nothing ever happens. That's the idea, and something has happened. We haven't physically seen it, but we all feel it.
Yeah, it might be just subtle. I think that might be the issue, that usually cataclysms are obvious. It's like a nuclear bomb or a war or a famine or something. But in our situation, it really is almost spiritual. It's very subtle in nature, what we're going through. The lack of normal people's ability to secure resources and territory and status enough to build a life feels as bad as something that would happen after one of those events. So it's like maybe the cataclysm is the whole globalist, multicultural, corporate, technocratic elite, that whole confluence of events, the whole everyone's life is online, nobody has borders anymore, nobody has an identity, nobody knows who they are, religion has collapsed, nobody has any way of getting any meaning. That might be the cataclysm. It might not be that we're anticipating one or that we're behaving as if it happened. That, I think, could be it.
It's been about 100 years of that crash. So with World War I, we saw a whole generation of men wiped out and obliterated. We saw, they came back, the walking wounded, they had the 1,000-yard stare. They didn't even have PTSD, but back then you were yelled at if you had PTSD. Just the shrapnel that would just liquefy your best friend right there. And even if you came home, you watched him become a red mist in front of you. We lost a lot of generation there. And then we also saw the transformation in America especially, from rural communities into urban communities. We crossed the threshold of more families in urban. Plus, during that time, we had the Industrial Revolution. The average work week was 80 to 100 hours until Henry Ford came along and dropped it to 40 hours a week. So you had families ripped apart in that capacity. You had the Dust Bowl, the Great Depression, families moving and losing their farms in the communities, clustering in cities, 16-hour work days in small apartments. You had this massive disintegration of every network that had been there before, with all 5 safety nets collapsing. The nuclear family, the extended family, the kith and kin network went away, the religious network went away, your village or / neighborhood even went away. So everything disintegrated. So if your parents didn't give you attachment and help you feel loved, your grandmother would, or your cousin, or maybe your priest, or maybe someone in your neighborhood would adopt you. Tolkien was famously adopted by a priest and raised in that structure. So it was a mass disintegration of all of those things that would have helped us say, someone cares about me, I'm all right, I can go on. So we no longer have that. Children are not being raised with, I am loved, I'm cared for, people will work with me. It's just this 100 years of ongoing trauma cycle.
And yet there's more, because what also happened is at the very end of that, every survival strategy that got families for generations through that period, at the very end, in the last maybe 20 years, we were told that they were bad and morally wrong.
We can't go back.
Everything we were told about this that actually carried us through as society and as humans, at the end was disgraced and disassembled.
Yeah.
And we're told now, and the children are told now continuously, that those mechanisms are the things that make you bad. And we hear that everywhere, on every piece of media and every piece of writing that's published right now. It's all repeating the same message. I think that's confusing.
And then, Homath, I saw, and I'd love to hear from you on your previous chart you were drawing about the men and the women separating into more liberal. Yes. You wrote cell phones there. Tell me about that, please.
Oh yeah, that's where I think that division started to, really take off, because everybody started to get uh, like a personalized whatever I believe is true machine in their pocket, and it just becomes an echo chamber. I made another video recently on that, where the there's a girl who I'll pull it out in a moment, but there's a girl who makes a few mistakes setting up a date and then reaches out to the hive mind for reinforcement that she's right and perfect and beautiful, and it was only the man who did anything wrong. And that is that comfort that they get, like the that wasn't available before this. They might be able to call up their girlfriends or whatever, but they probably wouldn't get that strong of a response. I think this girl got millions and millions of views. I think she got like 700,000 likes on it or something, which is probably 7 million views. And that kind of reinforcement for that, you didn't do anything wrong, you're perfect behavior, it just couldn't be matched by anything that came before the support machine in your pocket.
That's so true. In 2007, we saw, I think, the real launch of the iPhone, and we see this explosion of teenage depression, of extreme loneliness, of a collapse of reports of happiness. It just detonated. And one thing people don't much talk about is that when you have your online experiences like that, what you're doing is you're trading in-person connections where you get together, Andre, like you and I sitting here talking. This gives us oxytocin. It gives us serotonin release in our brain. It gives us all these biochemicals we need. And when we shift all of those online to a phone, it actually replaces the oxytocin and serotonin largely with dopamine. So we become dopamine obsessed. And many of the creators of the early smartphones actually came from casino machines. They actually hired them to draft that and punch us in the brain over and over and over with those pieces. So we traded the biochemicals that would have said, I'm safe, I'm loved, I'm part of a tribe, and I'm healthy, and we shifted into dopamine. Then we see an explosion of SSRIs after that, trying to scrape the bottom of the barrel. You're not even getting serotonin, but let's scrape up the fumes and hold on to that for one more second. You see an average of I believe the rate is 1/4 of American women are on some kind of psych med now.
Yeah.
And she's strapped to her phone, but she's more miserable than ever.
There's an interesting mechanism that got wrecked as well. So especially in the younger populations, when they run into challenges in life, they got a bad date, whatever, they would typically come to an adult, to a friend group, and they would actually be told that they are wrong.
Yep.
And this is what's going on that's correct. Now with a cell phone, you're not looking for reasons you're wrong. You're looking for reasons you're right. Right. And the point is that you're not, as a teenager, you don't know anything. You're actually learning. Maybe like 95% of your experience is going to come from those years of making mistakes. But if your mistakes are represented not as mistakes, but as reasons for blame to everybody else, what are you going to learn?
That's the difference between make me better and make me feel better. Those
Yeah.
are two very different things.
Yeah. That's I don't know if you guys saw the video or anybody watching right now, but basically the girl and the guy, get the app and they make their profiles. She puts up her pictures. The guy gets the wrong idea about what she looks like. He leaves the date really early, and then she goes and cries to TikTok for support. And I just drew these little things for the hive mind. They've created this culture here where there's always a place to go as long as you have the phone, that you can be told that men are always wrong and women are always right. And you've just got this endless supply of validation that, as you said, like these women don't actually care about her. They just want to tell her that she's perfect so that she will join the hive mind and tell them that they're perfect. They just want those neurotransmitters. They just want that reward mechanism that's going to keep them in their beliefs.
Yeah, we're not actually capable of caring about more than 150 people maximum, and that's the absolute upper limit. So this idea that we suddenly care about somebody because we saw them in a video once, we care about the way it makes us feel. We want to, and I've seen this danger, a lot of women validate behavior online that they wouldn't want to be criticized for. They validate other women and celebrate their behavior so that if they in turn do something or get exposed, they won't be punished for it because it's now normal. I have seen that with quite a few online interactions.
Yep. That's kind of sort of the centerpiece of what I am of the message that I'm trying to get out, is that once a society develops to this level 6, this understand level, they sort of start to break down everything that came before it. So they want for everybody to be valid and equal and equitable. And in order to do that, you have to kind of artificially boost some people and artificially tear down other people. And that means getting rid of all of the conventions that society has developed to put people in the places that they're supposed to be, to teach them what they're supposed to think. There's no supposed to up here. This is all you're valid. I posted a video to Twitter recently of a little girl throwing a temper tantrum in a grocery store and throwing all the food all over the place and everything. And they were letting her do it. And they were saying, let her express her feelings. But they in order to let her express herself down here, they had to destroy the whole you can't do that in public convention that we have. And that's what the hive mind and the cell phones are doing. They're circumventing what you just said about how people would tell her, hey, maybe some of this stuff you did was not smart, and maybe you could make a different choice in the future.
Your village is now 7 billion people, and they don't have your best interests at heart. They want to feel good for a moment.
Yeah, and that's what all this stuff is. That's all this down here is feel good for a moment. That's what's most important. And moving on to this level is, what do other people expect of me? And level 6 hates that. Oh, other people expect? Forget it. You have your own expectations for you. And it's intended to help people develop into the self-actualization phase where you know who you are and you can design your own life and find your best self. But for people who are not ready, it just keeps them in these lower stages.
Sounds like what you're saying is when the threats go away and there's not enough hardship, then society reverts to a kindergarten mentality is basically what you're saying. I think you're talking about James C. Calhoun's mouse utopia experiments like Universe 25 and things like that.
Yep, that's pretty much the size of it, yeah. It's luxury beliefs is the best way, I think, to put that. It's that people they have the luxury to believe things that don't match the real world, but they sure do feel good. And then that just pulls the supports out from under society.
The concept that we need pain and struggle in order to stay moral and ethical, but also functional and cohesive. That makes sense. Does that make sense to you, Andre? Because you are, for context, he is a very avoidant man, has been working on that. And we have him on the channel. He is my avoidant man.
I get done.
And we talk about, and we interview him, we talk about that experience. And a lot of women in the audience have actually been trying to understand him because they're trying to understand the men in their life. And they're not trying to understand secure men. They're trying to understand avoidant men because I think they sense that there's a lot of strength and power there and there are a lot of good features. Is that making sense to you, though, that we need that pain and that discomfort for society to be moral?
We have to have actualization above everything else. And the problem that right now that we are faced with is that there's very few avenues of actualization. You cannot go anywhere. You cannot do anything without there being some overbearing control over how you must feel, act, and be in the completion of it. So there's a few fields that are still open. That's why a lot of avoidant guys go into tech, sales,
finance,
engineering, right, and entrepreneurship. Even the military, which used to be the apex of avoidant men, is now being kind of significantly undermined in a lot of its practices and traditions. Is now turning much more about feelings, and it's not doing a lot of those guys a lot of good from what I hear down the grapevine. Perhaps I'm wrong, but it's what I heard.
Well, we'll find out when that military goes up against an actual military.
Which might be very soon with what's happening in the world right now, and that's not a joke, right? It's not a joke. I'm Eastern European, and I've spent a lot of time there, and I know the mentality they have is very different.
You were born in Moscow.
Yeah.
You grew up in Ukraine.
Yep.
You experienced the fall of the Soviet Union.
Yep.
You experience horrific conditions of people. I think you've told me stories about people eating cats to survive.
They're not that bad.
You've been through that. Then you moved into North America, and now you're watching us kind of follow the same foolish patterns, but willingly this time.
Yeah, it's mostly willingly. It's intentionally. At this point, I remember when I was growing up, the number one job that women desired was prostitution. It was considered to be the apex of society. As a girl, you wanted to grow up and be a prostitute. Between 1993 and 1996, that was it. And you know what happened after? About 99, 2000s came. First of all, there was a huge segmentation of men that went into crime, like horrendous, mafia movies, crime. That all happened. That was all true. And then there was this big rollback, and then religion made a comeback, and a lot of more masculine values started getting more popular in society.
Why? What happened?
Well, because it turns out that when all the women turn into prostitutes and the men start running around killing each other, it's not very safe for your kids. So when it turns out that, imagine this. Imagine that you are a mafia boss in, early, 90s in Moscow, say. And you make all your money, and you sleep around with all the women, and you're the apex of society, and then you marry and have a kid. And then your kid starts growing up, and you have to send him or her to school in a tank. And when they go for a walk, there have to be 15 armed guards, right? And then on their birthday, somebody tries to blow you up. And then you say, that's not what I wanted. This was a disaster. And then you say, we've got to change this. And this is kind of what happened with them, was that they decided to change their society because that happened. And now there's a whole different spin on it.
And I had the same feeling. My wife and I grew up and lived in California. Don't hold it against me. She grew up in the Midwest. So when it was time to have kids, we both agreed we are not doing this in California. They'll get taken away from us by the state. They'll get shot. They'll get whatever. So we moved to the upper Midwest, Wisconsin, and we started having kids. And then something horrible happened, right? We had the extreme riots in Minneapolis on one side of us, and then extreme riots in Kenosha on the other side of us. And we were now sandwiched in between burning cities and people killing each other. And I remember in my brain thinking like, I'm going to have to protect my family from people coming to kill us. And I remember having that thought. I remember my wife coming to me and telling me she was having that thought. And I remember us making plans. What will we do? What will we do to take care of our family? I remember that whole period. It was rough.
Is that why you told me not to walk in the cornfields? That's a minefield?
Well, it might be.
Don't go there, Andre.
It might be. But I remember like working together with my friends even and like, okay, what will we do if this and this and this? We talked about guarding our church with rifles. We talked about all kinds of things. But that's tell me
how it starts.
Tell me in that capacity, Andre, because I want to hear this. Who made the first move in that capacity, moving transitionally over to a healthy society for families? Was it men or women who made the move and started pushing society in a better direction?
I think it actually started with the women. I think there was a period in the late 90s where they drew the line, and there was something about the way that they chose to approach relationships when they started asking questions of their husbands that started pivoting things. They were the ones who brought forward the safety of children. They brought forward, just the calmness, in terms of, building at least little calm areas where the kids could be safe. And this entire idea that, do it for the kids, I think that is what started bringing the attention of the men. And then the men started having to start showing up and solving these issues. Now, I left in 99, so I didn't really know the details of it. But when I was leaving, that was the beginning of it. And later on, I think it very quickly gravitated towards women wanted first avoidant men and then eventually secure men. But it took about 15 years.
Did all the men turn to crime and then marry all the prostitutes and then they all had families, so everyone is a criminal and a prostitute?
Or mostly died out.
They all died?
Yeah, most of them died.
Okay, so the women that became wives and pushed society in a traditional direction were not former prostitutes?
The majority of them were not. The majority of the women who turned into, were former prostitutes. They just died of overdoses, alcoholism, violence, and whatnot.
Okay, and the men who also helped build a healthier society, were they former or current criminals, or did they all murder each other and it was mostly men who had been factory workers, or what was it?
There it was half and half, because a lot of the people who went into the government were, whether they not like it or not, were connected to crime. But the people who came after them actually did the building after that decision has been made, I guess. A lot of it was just regular people, regular guys,
Regular people that finally had their chance?
I think so.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Well, Matt, I'm curious for your thoughts on this. I see you drawing like a machine over there. What are your thoughts on this so far?
Putting a few words together over here.
Yeah.
I think that this is something that I've been going over and over again. The way that you put it is exactly the way that I've been framing it. I use Adam and Eve. That Eve chose to disobey God and eat the apple first, and Adam followed. It's women that set the stage for men. Men are motivated to do what women want. So when you say that it was women who started going in that direction, it's because they made demands. They said, we want men to be like this. And the men, if they want to be useful, that's this stage right here, which I drew the guy as quite unhappy because it's just not working for men right now. It's doing what's asked of you means just taking on a lot of burden and not getting anything for it. That's why men are staying in the Peter Pan stage, because they just, well, if I have to go through here, I'm just going to pay all my money in taxes for programs for other people and get nothing, and everyone's going to call me a demon. And that prevents them from graduating to this stage. And that the problem is that this is what women are requesting right now. That we haven't gotten to the stage where they're asking for more wholesome things. They're saying, I want to be a girl boss and go to Dubai and everything, and that's going to cost you.
Yeah, but that's juvenile, right? So the reason why, when I was in Russia and Eastern Europe, in Ukraine too, the reason why they're asking for things is because they had kids they needed to take care of. So this entire idea of take me to Dubai, it was repulsive to them because it's what all the prostitutes were doing. So they kind of went down that path, and then some of the women stayed, but the ones who didn't, they flipped back and they said, no, I want a home. I want you home for the kids. I want you to not get shot. I want you to bring food so we can have dinner together. And I'm going to hit you in the head with a pan until you give it to me,
Now,
which truly happened.
2 points I want to make here. One, it sounds like what we're talking about is like the 4B movement in South Korea is trying to replicate this and drive men. But and here in America, the very, very feminist shaved head kind of women are trying to do 4B, and no one cares because no one wants to sleep with those women. So they're trying to mimic that on a small scale, but mostly just the angriest women that no one seems to want. So number one, it's when the healthy, loving women start doing it that it actually matters. But number two, Andre, for that, I'm curious about this because a lot of American women are having children, but they're turning to the government as their husband.
But at what age are they having children?
Oh, all over the place. A lot of them are at 16 still, some, not as many. Some are older, but they have so many governmental safety nets that they're pulling from. As Homath is showing there, the average single man is now becoming a caregiver through taxes for the women, the single kids. Did the women in that scenario, did they have social nets where people were paying through welfare? Or did they have to rely on
No
them?
welfare. There was a lot of family connection, and there was a lot of kind of personal responsibility. It was still a big focus that a man must provide. So that value in society has not fallen.
So the safety net in America is preventing that effect from activating.
When you have no choice and you have no food, and you know that in order to get food, you're going to go and fight some dudes in the street as you try to sell whatever it is you're trying to sell or work wherever you're going to work. That's not a female job. They did not succeed in that role. Right. So it's just not how it works.
So until women have no choice and the government is not their husband, then they will turn to actual husbands to protect them, is what it's sounding like you're suggesting.
That's how it played out then. Do you think it's going to play out differently here, Homath? I'm kind of curious.
I'm curious, Homath. What are your thoughts there?
Yeah, I'm not sure how it's going to play out, but I know what'll happen if they don't change what they're doing. The development of society through these levels. When we got here to this stage, everybody started demanding equality, and the equality that they demanded had to be paid for by somebody, which means that they don't want to provide it. This is why everything's getting more difficult. It's one of the major reasons why everything's getting more difficult. If we don't figure out a way to get past that, to take the box off that guy's back, we're not going to be able to graduate to the next stage in society. We're just going to collapse down to a lower one. This is what I think, I would wish Rudyard was here. My friend, What If Alt Hist, he knows more about how this has happened in history than me, but my impression is that when people get here, usually the demands for equality that ends up making everybody live like a child, it usually involves a collapse. And this is most visible in the Muslim world, where they used to have a more open and free society. And for, I think it's been hundreds of years, maybe more than 1,000 years, that they have been, as a part of their religion, as a part of their society, denying women rights because they don't want to get back here and deal with this again. So there's some kind of trick that we have to pull to not collapse and instead make it to the next stage of society. But it's very difficult to convince women and, liberals, they're simps basically. It's very difficult to convince them that the way forward is not through entitlement to these things. They have it hammered into their heads that we have all of this stuff, that we're all swimming in Lamborghinis, and that they need to get an equal share of it, and that's what's going to create equality. They don't understand that most people who have anything did something for it. There is a lot of unfairness. don't know if we have time to get into that, but there's a lot of unfairness in the way that money and wealth is shared. But the way that they're going about it is to just attack men like on their level, and they're not going after the system. They're just putting themselves first in line, which means that these men are last in line. If we can't figure that out, it's going to be a collapse down to a lower level that probably won't be all that comfortable.
Yeah, your society either gets invaded and taken over by a stronger society, or you experience such an overwhelming collapse that everyone dies, and you go back to hard living and barely surviving, where you then revert to those features. Our systems have kept us from falling, and our massive superiority and isolation, superiority in military might, isolation on basically like a giant island, all of that has prevented what has always occurred throughout all of history.
So this structure that Homath is showing is basically that the cap that is preventing the creation of exceptional people. So it is exceptional people that drive society. So what happens is that if everybody has to be equal, that means that my success and my abilities cannot be used for your good because you don't want to feel bad about me being better than you. That means that I cannot go out and I cannot make exceptional advancements, say, in science, in technology, in politics, in military, anything, right?
I think we see that, correct me if I'm wrong, we see that in like the Nordic countries where it's actually a threat and a shame if you go out and excel in society because you're taking from other people, but you're also...
Look at how much crap Elon Musk is getting. Like, what did the guy do? Yeah. We didn't even do anything, man.
I mean, he did everything. He's flying us to Mars and making electric cars and all this stuff that people thought would never happen. And people are saying that he's the problem. It's absurd.
Yeah, well, that's what I mean. Like, he didn't do anything to society. He, did not start a war. He did not cause a famine. There's no like horrific, human rights issues. Okay, so a guy built some factories. He built some starships. He launched them. It's like, and it's his own money. It's not like he borrowed people's money and screwed them over out of their inheritance. This is something that he has built as a success story. But for some reason, he's getting a lot of hate because he's making a lot of people feel bad. That's not great.
No, it's envy. It's just the principle of someone shouldn't have that much. They think that if you tax billionaires, then all the problems go away.
If you disincentivize people from working hard, then everything gets better.
Right. That's what women are asking for is this guy. They're asking for men to be like this, but men have to go through this stage to get there, and they're making it way too difficult. And the more difficult it is, the fewer men get there, and then the more their demands go up.
And that's why we keep getting interest in the courses that we have specifically for the avoidant man, how to love them. It's actually not easy to love somebody who is an achiever, right? It really is not, because they're usually disagreeable, they're usually busy, they're usually not going to put up with, bad behavior, and they're not going to sit there and let you wallop in filth. Frankly, I gotta say, a lot of women out there, they will go out and they will waste their life, on useless pastimes. They will not progress, and they will expect a man to support that because that's how they're expressing themselves. It's like, sorry, if I'm your friend, you want me to be your friend, I would not want to tell you that you should be obsessed by the next Louis Vuitton purse. I'm going to say, what are you doing to develop yourself? Are you spending, time and health effectively? It's not about getting drunk with the girls on the town. It's about what are you doing with yourself? So a lot of it does have to come with responsibility. And they're not always willing to accept that or give up that lifestyle that they grew up with. So, yeah.
I will say that secure attachment in a woman generally leads to more of these healthy angles, more collaboration, more working together, more awareness of differences. What seems to be taking place is that as attachment collapses, as women get more fearful, as they feel scared for a variety of reasons, it looks a lot like rescuing a drowning person. So that women who are more emotionally dysregulated, their cortisol's out of control, they want safety, they beg for help. Governments are happy to step in and say, well, I can do that. Or corporations are happy to step in. I can help you.
And it's called marketing.
It is. It's opportunism. It's sometimes called being a vulture, but it is what it is. I think that women are petrified and terrified. So the idea of, give up control, trust men, let men help, back off a little bit, and it will get better. A lot of them have conditioned for the last 4 generations of women, men are scum, men will hurt you, men are evil, men are monsters. I grew up in California. I heard this messaging for decades from my school teachers and from everybody around us, all the authority figures. I think that women are so afraid of letting go that they're strangling men to death. And I think that men are really, really getting tired of that and walking away. I don't see how the system can continue the way it is for infinity, because all of it is propped up basically on taxpayers. As long as men keep working and paying taxes, the system continues, and a lot of men are walking away.
And a lot of men don't know how to say no to any of this.
True.
So that's
the piece.
Okay, so we talked about the stuff that women are doing wrong, or maybe the areas where they're being contradictory and whatnot. But also, a lot of the men out there, like, what are you guys doing?
Yeah,
like,
the men are allowing this.
You're allowing this. Deep down it is wrong. It is against your neurology and biology to be kicked for doing the right thing, and yet not only are you allowing it, but you're trying to get validation in giving up what your actual vision, what your purpose, what your values are publicly.
I think there's a collective learned helplessness among men. And this is not in any way, shape, or form to say this is men's fault, excuse women, blah, blah, blah. This is not to say men are the problem, men need to step up. I think that we've got such an indoctrinated learned helplessness. The experiment, Hometh, I'm sure you're familiar with the dogs that they put them in cages and shocked them over and over and over. And the ones that could not determine what the pattern of their pain was, they just lay down on the floor of the cage and got shocked and shocked and shocked. And even when the experiment was ended and they opened the doors, the dogs wouldn't even come out. They had surrendered completely. I think that's
You're describing
men.
the past 4 years of my life.
Yeah, that's right, and that's where men are. That's what male depression is. I'm firmly convinced that's what male depression is. Our problem is not that we feel unloved, like therapy tells us. I think the problem is that men feel powerless and helpless against their pain, helpless to achieve goals. We've disincentivized men and then traumatized them so deeply that they're just laying on the floor giving up. And that's we've got to convince men to get up, because they are the only ones that can really fix this. I don't think that, and I'm going to say this controversially, women cannot fix this. As much as women say they want to fix it or whatever, they cannot. Only men can fix this. The only thing they can do is
ask for the right things.
Yes,
Yeah.
they
Men
can
have to deliver it.
The feminine is supposed to drop the handkerchief and propose the challenge. The masculine rises to the challenge and kills the dragon. And we've got a generation of men that don't even know that they can kill dragons.
Sound like Jordan Peterson there about the killing of the dragons.
Well, I mean, it's the quest. That is the quest. Beowulf is classic for a reason. So is Gilgamesh. But you're supposed to go on the hero's journey, and so many men are laying on the floor giving up. It's not their fault, but we do need to get these men up. Do either of you gentlemen have any ideas about how to get these men up? Because nothing will improve until they do. The avoidant men are getting up, but they're avoidant.
Short of systemic change, the only idea that I have is I launched an app recently called Selfmax that is intended to it asks you about yourself, so it understands who you are, it evaluates your level of thinking and whatnot, and it asks you what you want out of life, and it gives you suggestions and then helps you track them. So it uses AI to do that. And my suggestion is, because I just really quickly want to go over that everything that you just described is happening because I use this red arrow to symbolize effort. Basically, it's the spiritual property of eros. You want something and you pursue it. It could be I want a car, or I want to be the next Andrew Tate, or I want a girlfriend, or whatever it is that I want. The more of it that men do, the more of it gets taken away and put into things that they don't like. Like when I have to pay taxes, one of the most miserable times of my life, even though I'm making a lot of money right now, the amount that they're taking away from me and putting into things that I don't even want happening, it makes me not want to do it at all. It makes me not want to get up and work. I would be happy to pay taxes if it went into systems that gave me a world I wanted to live in, but it's doing exactly the opposite. It's creating things that I don't want in my country. It's taking my rights away. It's just tearing everything down. There's so much fraud and corruption. So men are so tired of that happening that they don't want to go through this phase of even trying. And sometimes I tell men to just stop playing video games and get good at something. And their reaction is, well, that's just going to put me here. Why bother getting good at anything? That's what this feels like to them. They're equating this, let's try something, with this.
Slavery.
It's just a horrible burden that no one's going to appreciate me for, and they're going to spit in my face.
Mhm.
So what I designed Selfmax to do was to help them go around anything that's going to put that burden on them, and you can go through this phase of following the rules and doing the right thing by, I don't know, you could get good at archery, or you could give skiing lessons, or you can do anything that is outside of or around the system that is going to turn you into the kind of person that we're talking about that men need to be in order to solve the problem. So I'm trying to, because I can't do anything to affect this systemic change so that we're not doing this to men anymore, but I am trying to show them that there are plenty of things you can do to get here without getting this put on your back. And you might not be rich, you might not be able to get into the corporate world and succeed, but if you can do something that shows that you have self-mastery, it will move us past this to the point where maybe we can get the power to change the systemic problem.
So it sounds like there's 3 changes then that are already happening. One is men who cannot make systemic change. So they're going completely around the systemic change and doing other things to prepare themselves to become men who can endure, grow, and build families, right? Which is good, going completely around the circumstance on
That's
the
the
outside.
homesteading.
That's the homesteading idea, basically, yes. What you're talking about there with your app, that's awesome. The second piece is men going through the system. And I know some of the men pushing through the system, trying to do political things, trying to change the system as much as they humanly can. Seeing with the election recently was a transition back in some ways for some of that. We're seeing maybe some systemic changing, but it's going to have to happen on a local level, not just a big national level as well. Otherwise, nothing changes. And the third element is men who are going through that, who are muscling through the factory blue collar man who's just pushing through and also enhancing himself on the side, doing a side hustle, who's growing. He's kind of combining both elements. And he's going through, he's got the box on his back, but he's building his strength so he can endure it harder. And maybe he's connecting with other men, building tribal networks, building connections with people that can help him bear that burden in a different way and be clever, find not loopholes, but ways to be smarter and to thrive anyway inside the system. It's a hard path and not everyone can do that. And I don't think most men, well, I want to say this carefully. I don't think that we're going to get through this without some eggs being broken. I think there's going to be a lot of men that don't make it through this meat grinder. And I don't say that with any kind of joy in my heart at all. I think that these are 3 very hard paths, and we've reached a hard place where it's going to take some very hard things that we're going to have to go through. But there's 3 things happening right now, and I think we should all take some encouragement from that.
So I can make this one comment and say, when I was working with Jordan Peterson, there was one piece of advice that showed us tremendous results, and really I think was one of the big things one of the big ways in which he impacted the world. And he said, if you can't do something, take the smallest possible step and do it anyways. Like if you want to do 100%, at least take 1% step, 2% step, and keep doing that so that you can prove to yourself that something is possible. So number 1, figure out a direction. If you don't want to learn archery, go for walks. If you don't want to go for walks, go to the gym, go somewhere, go 1 day a week, go at least, do at least something. So that's the first step. But the second step, there are many people out there who can give you a vision for what it is that you want. If you want to be a marketer, if you want to be a construction worker, you want to be a fitness trainer, if you want to be a salesperson, you want to be a programmer, there's many people who are actually manifesting themselves online, so you can actually go and see what they're like and imagine a possibility where this is possible. And then the third way, ultimately, is just a question of repetition. What you're trying to do is you're trying to learn a skill. So I remember when we were doing Jordan's shows, we would get hundreds, if not thousands, of blue collar people, just dudes rolling into our shows dressed in suits, ready, attentive with notes. And they were so interested in being able to learn not just what it's going to take for them to be better, but to see an example of how somebody else can think and act. So the reason why people are carrying that box is because they actually put themselves in that box, especially men. They lock themselves away in a tiny little box where there is no possible escape when there's a huge world outside of them. When I was living in Canada and COVID happened, there was a mass exodus of talent. And a lot of the entrepreneurs, content creators, thinkers picked up and left. And I was amongst them because all of a sudden we found ourselves in a box that did not want to conform to anything that we wanted. And we're always bad. And that's okay. We picked up and left. And a lot of other people picked up and left. And that's something that many men can do is they can pick up and go somewhere where the circumstances are vastly and more in their favor than whatever it is that they're in at the moment. It does not take very much effort, but it does take a lot of determination. I see some more doodles.
Yeah,
He's
need. Drawing fast.
I know.
They're just scribbles. I'm just sort of depicting, what we're talking about here, where the women start by, I'll switch to myself. They start by saying that they want something, and then the men, in order to deliver it, I was going to color these in too. The men, this is going to be a little red square and a blue circle.
Mm-hmm.
The women say that they want something, and the men say, well, in order to deliver that, I need the, blue circle. But then the women are saying, well, I want that too. That's the problem that we're having, where they want to have it all, so the men don't have what they need to give the women what they want.
That is that entitlement, that fear, that drowning. That we are going to have to get to that place where women are going to have to. And we talk all the time. Let me pause that thought. We talk all the time about, for a woman to submit to a man, he has to be worthy of her trust. We are definitely getting to a place where we have to push hard on that conversation of, if you want men to be men and masculine, you have to be worthy of him as well. It's double worthiness on both sides.
Yeah, that's what the Whatever podcast is doing such a good job at. That's why I like them so much. They do a really good job of getting women to come on and demonstrate the entitlement that they want everything given and to give nothing. They're all queens, and they all are, they all want a top 1% guys. That's what they put in the titles of their videos. So
let me ask you this. What's the next step? So let's say that is indeed being uncovered. A lot of women are entitled. What happens after? Let's say if you did, expose the fact that this is a major, major issue in society, and it truly is. What do you tell a woman who goes on to the Whatever podcast and, says what she says? How do you get her better?
You don't say anything to get them better. You can't do that, because even if you have one of those like feminist destroyed, even if you have one of those videos where you really tell her what for, she's just going to go home and keep her same values later. It's show, don't tell is the principle. So rather than telling them what they need to do, which they're never going to listen to. I don't know if you've ever tried to get anyone to listen to something they don't want to listen to. It does not happen. You have to put them in situations where your choices are giving you consequences, but we're offloading all of the consequences onto men instead.
That's true. I've got 5 kids, and telling them does very, very little. Boys or girls, telling them does very little. Letting them follow through on the consequences, or even just walking them through the consequences and letting them see it. The awareness that floods their consciousness and cultivates their prefrontal cortex, which as kids we're supposed to develop. If it doesn't develop by 25, you've got mush for prefrontal cortex, and that's part of where society is. There's an old saying that society progresses one grave at a time, and sadly it's in some ways true. But you do have to cultivate that, and showing real consequences is irreplaceable. You can't get by without that.
Yeah, I've got this from my live stream, I think yesterday, where somebody asked me a similar question, and they were asking me, how do you get people to understand something? I don't remember exactly what the question was. And the mistake that we make is we use our logical, rational minds to communicate logical, rational things, which does not work, because that's not where beliefs come from. Beliefs come from here. It starts in feelings and sensations, which become identity and emotions, which then become beliefs. You cannot just tell people have this belief that you haven't felt yet. You got to make them feel it. And I don't know how we're going to do that.
So that's actually, Andre, what you do, right? So it is logical left brain trying to speak to emotional right brain, and emotional right brain has no idea what's happening. But you do quite well at marketing, at advertising, at speaking to those. And you've told me all the time, you've told me numbers of times, and this has stuck with me, people respond to two things: fear and desire. Those are the only two things on the planet people really respond to, is fear and desire.
Yeah.
How do you speak to that? How do you teach somebody through those?
So we have externalized those mechanisms and given them into the hands of anybody and everybody, from the government to the popular media to social media to anybody who's got an influence on your life, especially, again, going back to the question of men. I think that is a good place to comment. And we said, you will tell me what I should desire and what I should fear. And by consequence, there's simply no way that anybody can do anything with their life as long as that is the structure. What we must do if we want to change all of these dynamics we've been talking about, that first of all is, men, again, speaking as a man and speaking to men, I say that you need to bring that system back in. It's not about what you should be afraid of. It is who you are afraid of being and who is it that you desire to be that is going to be the directive that is going to break the system that home math has right there, right? Where, it's not going to be the woman who says, I want, and then, you say, well, she wants, she desires, and now I must desire the same thing. I'm going to go get it, and I'm going to be dependent on her paying me. And then the system breaks, and you say, well, all women suck. I did my part, they screwed me over, and I'm going to go sit in my, in my basement, play video games forever because I got screwed over. It's like, no, it's a question of what is it that you desire? Who do you desire to be? And most of all, what do you fear to become? I personally fear to become the guy who sits in the basement alone and has failed everybody and cannot achieve anything. So I specifically act to avoid that. And I think as a lot more people kind of get into the mentality that it's they who decide what they become, and they have the ability to control what their life is going to look like through their definition of their own fears and definition of their own desires, that might change a lot of things.
I think our answer actually is found in a play written 500 years ago by William Shakespeare called The Taming of the Shrew. And in this play, right, and Homath is already laughing. In this play, forgive me, I can't remember the names, but I believe her name is Kate, is angry, shrill, controlling, domineering. Everybody and everything is under her control. And she only comes to understand the folly of her own behaviors, even viciously attacking her sister and her father, through the consequences that her husband levies upon her in a number of ways. And I can't defend some of his actions, but he does lay consequences on her for her actions. And by the end of the play, what's fascinating is it's actually her that grabs the other ungrateful wives and drags them to their husbands and forces them to apologize and then she goes on a long spiel about the sacrifices that husbands make, the appreciation a wife must have, and how he has earned her faithfulness and earned her gratitude and earned her service, not by crushing force, not from tyranny, but through the ongoing pain and suffering that he endures. I think that's what society is also waiting for, is women, the good women, the genuinely good-hearted women out there who want that love, who want that intimacy, and who are appalled at the behavior of other women. When those women get up and say something and do something and drown out the entitled, angry, selfish women with personality disorders at 15 to 20%, when the good women have enough, I think that's where a lot of this begins to change. It is men that need to get up off the floor, but it's also women that need to get off their phone and out of their room and go do something about the other women. Men need to police men, women need to police women. And I think that when that happens, we will get somewhere.
Well, as long as there's a place for us to actually get together and disagree. One of the things we talked about earlier is that, as Homas has said, you pull up your phone, you simply find the next confirmation chamber where they say whatever you did, that was good and you were correct and everybody else sucks. And as long as you just keep doing that, there's no place where these conversations can happen. We've gotten really good at shutting the world out because it is scary and uncomfortable.
Yes. And yet, it will not get better until that. You said that in your in your culture where you grew up, it got better when the women refused to allow those things anymore because it was hurting their kids. And I think back to my wife. God bless her. She's been a godsend in good ways, because and I think back to one of her, not friends, but one of the people in our social groups who said, I've decided I'm going to divorce my husband and have a fun life because I'm not getting what I deserve. And my wife looked at her and said, well, then you're an idiot. And when women push back on other women in that way, instead of saying, yeah, slay girl, you go get yours, have a good time, right? When women say, then you are an idiot. And the woman went, what? And she said, you are the reason none of us can be happy. You're going to destroy your kids. And then she said, yeah, I don't want to be around you anymore. She would not be around that woman anymore. She didn't want her around our kids.
There's a consequence.
She didn't want their family around our family. Yeah.
Yeah.
My wife shuts those women out hard because she doesn't even want those women around. When more women do that, society can also improve. We need women to police women. What happens in action movies? The guy doesn't fight women. The female character comes in to fight the woman for him. That's what we also need. Women out there, if you are unhappy with society, if you are good women, you need to stand up.
You don't have to put up with this.
Do not.
You really don't.
How are we gonna get them to do that? How do we break them out of this? Psychologically, how it's working is, I finished the diagram here. Psychologically, how it's working is women want certain things. Typically, men have to go get them, but in order to get them, they need something to get it. But then the women are saying, well, I want that too. I want my equality. I want equality.
Yeah.
And they get the government to deliver the equality for them. So now the women have everything, and the men don't have the means to do what they're supposed to do. And the women conclude, well, men are useless. Whereas what's really happening is quite a lot of what men are creating is coming to them indirectly through the government rather than directly from men. So women are like, well, what do we need men for? And they're completely blind to this whole thing going on over here. They've voted to get it, but don't know they're getting it.
I think what Andre said earlier tells the truth of it is women are usually not motivated. Good women are usually not motivated for self-interest. They sort of just go quiet, and the bad women jump forward for self-interest. Good women are motivated, and the stories resonate with us the most when this happens, to protect their loved ones, to avenge their father, to protect their children. I think of, was it Queen Boudica, who they committed grievous sins against her and her daughters. She went on a vicious campaign against the Romans. She's definitely been whitewashed in a number of ways. She wasn't a great figure, but that protect my children, avenge my family, that mentality. When you threaten good women's families, that's where I think you see the teeth come out.
Well, how can we change this around? So as the data shows, even from the beginning of this conversation, that women are increasingly more interested in avoidant men. Why? Because they are more valuable to them as partners and husbands. They're more sexually attractive and they're more interesting. So ultimately, what does this say? It says that if you want to change society, all we have to do is simply create more of those men who are securely attached, and they're going to start flocking on because they're going to look at we're seeing this in Gen Z and Gen Alpha now, and they have some of the lowest rates of sexual encounters across all teenagehoods, across all young numbers, because many of those men, they've been brought up with the wrong impressions. And they're not even beliefs, they're not even structures because they're so young, they're just the wrong impressions and they're still figuring this out. I still have a lot of faith in that group of people because they have not yet had the chance to learn what life is really like, and they've been living in a bubble, a very pink bubble. And I think that's going to blow up soon. And when it blows up, there's going to be a shock. Sorry, guys. And then a lot of them are going to turn what's going to be more avoidant so that later on they can turn more secure. Yeah. Now, the women will be simply not pursuing men who are overly anxious. That's just a massive turn on. Every single female who has been brought on this podcast, and we've interviewed many, when we asked them, how do you feel about anxious men? They go, ugh.
Yeah, it's instant revulsion.
Yep.
That's the friend zone.
Yep. So men are gonna the men who hack the system and realize that they can be at least avoidant and at best secure, are going to succeed. And Adam has actually a great course called the Attachment Bootcamp, specifically teaching you how to go independently from avoidant or anxious or disorganized to secure. And that's been selling like crazy, but that's been selling like crazy mostly to men. So men are trying to buy the course to learn how to be secure and high value to the women who are learning how to at least be able to manage avoidant men because they can't find the secure ones. So this is already happening behind the scenes, and it's very grassroots because it's instinctive. There is nothing that can teach a woman that an anxious man is attractive. And you can dress him up in whatever you want, which is what they did in South Korea. They made a lot of anxious men. And in Japan, I've been to Japan and I walk through the streets and I'm like, man, you guys are freaked out. The men are freaked out. And that was all until it was really interesting. I was in the streets of, I believe, Kyoto, just kind of walking down, and I see two older gentlemen decide to get into a fight. And one guy, they were drunk, like belligerently, and they started like ripping off their clothes, and instantly, like a crowd of women. There must have been about 200 women materialize and like edge them on. This one guy is like, rips off his shirt, and he picks up a bicycle and starts chasing the other guy. And as the other guy trips and falls into the crowd, they pick him up, they dust him off, and push him back in to see how it goes. It was phenomenal. And that was attractive to them. Not all the guys who were dressed up and like slicked back and clean shaven. It was like two dudes just beating the crap out of each other with a bicycle was the show of the night. That's how it works.
That's what women are looking for, to be honest.
Yep, they're looking for the bad boy stuff. We don't have it because we kind of get punished for having it.
You go to prison.
Yeah, for sure. Daniel Penny. He did the right thing, and he's, it's not looking good for him. I'm hoping to develop this a little bit more to get into more of what you're talking about, the showing men how to develop what I call bad boy points or bad boy traits, because it is very sensitive, and you can get in a lot of trouble and end up going to prison for doing the right thing and for being a man, even though women are asking men to be men. But there are a lot of things that you can do that will trigger that feeling in women, that you're, the more that you have these things to show and then show them off, the less you are going to appear anxious. The more that you have to offer, the less you're going to be worried that someone's going to like it. And it's the development of these traits that I think men have to focus on. I think that's the only thing they can do without systemic change.
Yeah, it's really, I've tried to break it down as simply as I can. Masculinity it must be born from personal sovereignty, and self-discipline, self-control in every way. You can't be controlled by others. You can't even be controlled by your own emotions. Total personal sovereignty. But that's a juvenile version of masculinity, which is what avoidant attachment style really shows, is juvenile masculinity, the swaggering Andrew Tates of the world. But even that is better than anxiously attached men who have no masculinity at all. It's effeminacy, the inappropriate presence of feminine traits where there should be masculine traits. They're not even feminine, they're effeminate. So when you have avoidant masculinity, it's at least the juvenile version. It's better than nothing. The secure masculinity really is what we're, as you showed, what we're prevented from reaching, because secure masculinity finds its fulfillment in service to others, not by collapsing your personal sovereignty. You have to maintain personal sovereignty, but also become service to others. Legacy, the next generation, your family, your nation, even the king is in service to his people. But service through sovereignty is really the culmination of masculinity. And yes, we are utterly blocked in many ways from reaching that. A lot of men, most men are blocked from that. Even from the initial stages, men are too scared to reach out and build personal sovereignty.
Yeah, personal sovereignty by disconnecting from others is what a lot of us, it's the only thing that a lot of us can get, because this would be personal sovereignty through support by others. So this is like the good king who his people love him. If you try to do that now, people don't like it very much, which is why you have to go avoidant. You have to disconnect. You got to disappear in order to protect whatever your kingdom is. Do the Andrew Tate thing. Yeah, I'm just do my own thing, and if people don't like it, I cut them off. And I don't know what's going on with a lot of guys out there. I don't like doing this. I don't like it. I know that I have to, and I've gotten a lot better at it over time. I don't enjoy it. I have a tendency to go towards this area as well, and I was very, very strong and anxious attachment style early in life. And yeah, the need that it displays, the worry that someone's not going to be there, the worry that I might, be in my sovereignty and then not get back what I want is what causes the anxious one. The avoidant is being in your sovereignty and then not caring what you get. So you don't give the benefits and you don't get the benefits either. You just are what you are, and she can take it or leave it. That's not, like you said, not the mature form. The mature form is being able to have a healthy, valuable exchange.
Right. Yeah. The avoidant people, it seems like from what I've been able to piece together working with like Dr. Sue Carter, one of the leading experts of oxytocin and vasopressin bonding, avoidant people have been in their sympathetic nervous system all of their life. So they've never really experienced the oxytocin bonding. So they don't have that addiction process. They don't connect oxytocin with safety at all. They connect bonding with other people with unsafety. So then it's just stay activated in my sympathetic all the time. I create my own sense of safety, and other people intrude on that. So then you avoid collaboration, which feels impossible. So you avoid collaborating because it feels impossible to ever resolve something beneficially for you. Anxiously attached people, it seems like, and it's I hate the terminology mother wound, but it's you were flooded with oxytocin and then it was taken away, and you were flooded with oxytocin and it was taken away. Whether mom was distracted, depressed, angry, abusive, plugged into her phone all the time, overly anxious herself, and you experienced that and you started to blame yourself and said, something is wrong with me and others leave me. No matter how much I do, it will never be enough to compensate for my innate flaw. That's the anxious piece. Avoidant people don't even know what that feels like, it seems to create that weird dichotomy.
Yeah, again, you're describing me really well here. That's how my early life started, and it replicated itself in all my relationships for a really long time until I started figuring out how to do this. And I suddenly became very popular. And I was like, wait a minute, that doesn't make any sense. I thought the whole point was to get these reward mechanisms activated, but that's what brings you into the weakness that they don't like. That's why they run
Yes.
away.
So there's a very hard segregation between the population of people who have secure attachment and the population of people who have insecure attachment, anxious and avoidant, because they even signal differently to each other at the beginning of meeting. The first meeting they have, the way they conversate, the way they ask more personal questions, the way that they avoid personal questions. The anxious people are the only thing they have that they understand is I can either be approval seeking or I can not care what anyone thinks. That's that dichotomy, which is why the red pill dating gurus, the rational male from Rollo Tomassi, Ryan Stone, Anthony Johnson, a lot of them, they push this idea that you shouldn't be anxiously attached, you should be avoidantly attached instead. Yes, if the world is entirely populated only with insecurely attached people, that seems to be the proper answer. The real goal is to get securely attached in a securely attached population where everything is fulfilled and safe and healthy boundaries and healthy. But yes, the world right now is trending away from secure attachment. The world is trending toward more insecure attachment as society begins its breakdown.
So, Homath, let me ask you this. So you've kind of gone from anxiously attached towards avoidantly attached. Do you envision yourself ever going secure, and what would that look like?
It's a little bit late for me. I don't know if I'm really going to have a whole lot more relationship experience from this point. I am very tired. I don't know what else I'm going to be getting up to with the remainder of my life other than hopefully this lasts a really long time. I've got enough content to last for years and years. If I remain popular, I'll keep doing it. I would, this is the goal. This is how I imagined things working. I know that it's possible. I don't know how I'm going to get from I have a long history of this, and I still have the emotional setup. So I still sort of feel a certain way when a relationship begins. As a layer on top of that, I have figured out how to do this, how to control my neurotransmitters and hormones, and how to prevent oxytocin from. I made a video about that early on that everyone misunderstood. I should make it again. I've learned how to do that and to be in control of the relationship. So I'm the prize and the girl wants me. And usually that's pretty unstable as well. And I end up either moving or saying, I put him in the sleeper zone and I just go, I can't right now. And it's like, oh, you're 40. When is right now going to turn into, like, when is it going to be the right time? I don't know if I can calculate at this moment where in my dating pool I would pull somebody from who has the ability to fulfill what I would need from a secure relationship attachment. Everyone that I'm meeting, even after becoming famous and women all over the world sending me messages and everything, I'm meeting crazy and unstable types. And I always have to do this really hard with them.
This is where men are getting trapped right here, is they don't know how to do the upper level, the secure, because it's building secure attachment is not within self. You're not like, yeah, I think I'm going to be secure today. That's impossible, because this formed externally. It needs to also repair externally. So your community, your connections need to happen securely. What the old answers are usually the best answers, which is why we're corrupted against them. The old answers are that through all of human history, the only way to really build established connections was through family friend networks. And up until 1995, that was 65% of people forming relationships. Now it's 12.5% of people forming romance through family and friends, because most people don't have family friend networks and they don't know anyone secure. They all know insecurely attached people. And again, they segregate out very hard. Typically, what I have seen work for most of my clients who work with me, the guys that do this and the women who do this, is building secure relationships with people who are growth-minded, and I hate that term, but it's the only term we have, growth-minded, self-aware, shutting off that self-serving tendency, actually becoming more secure in their relationships, and they are in enough pain that they say, no more, I am going to start acting differently, and they force themselves to act secure in their relationships, and by doing that with enough friends, then they foster the secure attachment first. Then those networks often will bring them a partner who's more healthy and securely attached. That's the only method that seems to be working.
It's like manifestation. It's kind of what the astrology girls call manifestation. When you start vibrating on a certain level, then you pull in what you want. It works that way sometimes. Like on the emotional level, it works that way.
It takes time.
So it takes time. Yeah, you have to be the whatever is the counterpart to what you want. You have to be the puzzle piece that your desired puzzle piece fits into. And then the ones that don't fit will fall off. Like as long as you keep being the wrong puzzle piece, all the wrong guys will fit into it.
Yeah.
Yeah. One thing that I've noticed personally, because in some ways my journey's also been similar to home math. So initially I was anxious when I was, a teenager in my early 20s, and I went avoidant pretty hard, pretty hard to compensate, because I was just tired of that state of being, and it was not my thing. But for me, the only thing that allowed me to kind of start flipping out of it was I started focusing on the spirituality religion aspect. So eventually, when I found a particular philosophy to follow, and I followed that hard, and everybody who didn't fit into that, it didn't share the same value, got cast away at the very beginning. Eventually, when I found somebody who had a similar commitment to that structure, and that was the absolute commitment, it was the only structure that allowed us to have enough accountability, not just to each other, but also to our own inner world in that perspective, in order to function. Because we now both have the same level at which we can operate. We said, this is what we both want, and we're convinced we do. That's the only way it allowed us to actually switch into secure. Until then, there was nothing to hold it. It's almost like you need a framework. If it's not family and friends who will hold you accountable, not everybody has that. Yeah. You cannot build that also, because you cannot change people. But what you can do is you can find a group, whether it's religious or maybe there's a hobby, maybe there's something else, but it can allow you to practice that secure attachment enough until somebody comes along and says, I want to be like this with you.
So then we're talking about tribal vulcanization, which might be the future that we're looking at.
I think so. Yeah.
Which is some populations will be vulcanized off, securely attached, tight, formed structures of peer pressure, almost like Amish enclaves is almost what you're like looking at, but not to that extent.
They're already forming. These enclaves are already forming. There is creator communities. I don't know, home math, if you ever thought about like moving to Dubai, like a lot of other people, and then you don't have to pay taxes.
A lot of people have suggested it. I don't know if I'm going to Dubai this year.
No, maybe you should. It's a nice place. I actually really like it. I have my next step might be there too. But point being is that they're actually collecting communities there. Of course, there's the OnlyFans communities there, and there's all the crazy people. But there's some really good communities of fantastic people that stick together. And if I was given the option of, hey, you can move into a small group, in like a small entity of, say, 20, 30 people who are all supporting each other, and then you guys are all aligned, I'd be there in an instant.
Yeah,
So
I heard some numbers like an estimated 300,000 British nationals, largely conservative,
yep.
have all moved into that area in the last year.
And I met them too. They're
in the last
fantastic.
year, it's been a flood of more conservative thinkers and money and families and
Yeah.
friends moving to those areas. That again, that balkanization.
Yeah.
Yeah,
so
they're bailing out of where they come from.
exactly. So Homa, basically my story was that when I started kind of my whole attachment journey, I was just finishing a divorce, which was, well, actually it was in the middle of a divorce, which ended about 6 months after that, which was a mess, but, had to happen. And I started working with Adam. It took me 2.5 years or 2.5 years to prepare for a relationship because I had to work through all those skills, right? But when where we were ready and the match happened, they started coming into play. A lot of times it's just pre-training and preparing, and it's like really setting yourself up for success when that time comes. It's a bit of an opportunistic experience.
I will say the work to prepare for a relationship is actually just the work to have a good life, even if you don't have a
Yeah,
relationship.
and it improved
It's
across
worth
the
doing
board.
it's worth doing for quality of life, but that tends to attract a woman because women, well, this will be controversial, but women don't really devote themselves to men. Women don't commit to a man. Women really commit to a man's vision that she can co-create a legacy with him, that the life that he will build with her, that she will get. That's what women really commit themselves to. And women will admit that when they're honest about it. That's ultimately what it is. So you have to build that life and be living that life already
Mhm.
before you can really attract that woman. And that's
then
hard
you can't
work.
lose it for too long either.
Yeah.
Can't even slip up.
Correct.
Yeah.
It's tough, and the wrong woman, if you pair with her, will strip that away from you. If your attachment isn't solid, if she tricks you, the personality
Yeah.
disordered women out there, the
It's kind of like
predators.
snakes and ladders, honestly. It's like, you know what? Sometimes you will find people that will elevate you, and sometimes they will just drag you
Which
down.
is
You just
why-
get smarter in time.
Which is that learned helplessness. This is why
Yeah.
a lot of men are checking out right now, because the learning curve is just so brutal.
It's a tough
It's
game.
just it's too much risk. They keep trying things that don't work so bad. They just go, I'm not capable of making anything work. That happened to me for a while after I oh god, it's my life story is long and boring, but there were so many things that I had to do to dig myself out of so many holes. And when I finally got my life working, then the COVID lockdowns ruined it. And for a very long time after that, I just said, "Oh, there just isn't there's nothing for me to do in this society." And I spent a very long time just on the couch after that. It does burn you out. It's the way that I say it is like, if you want to become a great chess player and you start playing chess, how many games in a row do you have to lose before you decide chess is not for me? Like 10, 100, 10,000? If you start playing and you never win a game, at some point you got to go, it's dumb for me to keep trying. And for a lot of guys, chess is the whole world.
But what else is there, Homath? Because there's a thing, right? If you don't like playing chess, you can go play something else. Maybe it's going to be soccer. Maybe it's going to be, I don't know, whatever else.
That's my point, though, is that it's the whole, like, there isn't anything. Like, the chessboard is just life. And soccer might be like moving the rook, and then business would be moving the queen, and none of my moves have worked, and so I quit the game. That's kind of what they're doing. They're flipping the board.
A lot of men are quitting the game in a variety of ways, either checking out, and in Japan they call it the sexodus, we call it MGTOW here in America, or just completely removing themselves from the mortal coil.
Yeah, a lot of times it's because it's just not viable or possible to learn this on your own. And yet there's another interesting statistic, right? So from running Adam's attachment practice, we went over 1,600 clients recently and 99.8% success rate. Why? Because once people go through a particular like vision implementation, really what it is, it's like a behavior and vision implementation. Your life changes because you see a possible alternative. In most cases, the reason why people cannot break out is because they see no possible future and they just can't get through the fog fast enough to not get turned around, right?
That's an interesting point, because men, we are meant to connect, and I believe the male brains are meant to connect across space and time, not in a metaphysical sense, but the male brains are almost like data clusters throughout space and time that we've
Yeah.
all been blinking together. We're supposed to network. We're supposed to share solutions so we don't have to reinvent fire, reinvent the wheel, reinvent the spear. We hand down that knowledge and then we all work together continuously on building solutions. I think that network has been so shattered in the last 100 years that you've got all these data nodes clustered off on their own or in tiny little pockets. And until we get those data nodes re-networked across the face of the earth through space and time, and I think Hometh, a lot of your people and a lot of your chat right now probably, and everybody following you, these are men trying to re-network and reconnect to the data cluster. Once we get the male brain reconnected across space and time, we will probably solve a lot of this. And that's a big piece of it, is men striving alone can do very little. Men who connect to that network and get the solutions can actually accomplish quite a few things.
Hope so.
That comes right back to this again, where we used to, teach men what to do. We had pretty standard ways of having men grow up. I read a book, God, I can't remember. It was like King, Warrior, Magician, Lover, I think. And they were talking about that there are, in a lot of societies, especially in their earlier development, they have a ritual that is a very hard line between boyhood and adulthood. We don't have anything like that. What we're telling men, and this is again what happened in my life, when I was trying to move through these stages up to the higher ones, I kept asking people when I was here, what do I do? What am I supposed to do? Where am I supposed to live? How am I supposed to? And everyone spoke to me from up here and said, you can do whatever you want. You can figure out, you can be whatever you want to be. You can be your true self. And it's not the right level of relationship to have with people who are not figuring things out yet. There needs to be a structure of handing down the knowledge of how to work in the world. I remember when I was trying to rent an apartment for the first time, I kept asking my parents how much I'm supposed to pay for an apartment. And they said, whoa, it's up to you. And my point is, I don't know anything, but you do. You understand the world and I don't. Can you help me? And no one's doing that, which is why they're stuck at the bottom.
I think we are doing that. I mean, you with your network and people learning from you, us, our podcast. I think that men and women are reaching out and we're finally reconnecting and coming out the other end. I think that people are desperate for that information. The phones that originally broke us, helped break us, I think we're reconnecting. People are looking for content creators who are curators of information. They join networks. They're learning. I think that nature is healing. There's still people breaking us. So we need to do away with perhaps not. I don't mean that in that way, but we need to reduce the number of bad actors who are acting against, and then increase the number of good actors who are facilitating that healthy growth.
It's a curation, right? Ultimately, we need to start curating again towards what is definitely bad, definitively good in our society. And first, at least some predominant, number of people has to agree on it. And then we just have to say, no, that's not for us, right? This is the wrong piece. This is the wrong piece. And the art of saying no is the biggest art that we've lost.
Yeah.
And that's one thing that we're going to have to regain. So I think we're all going to go through our avoidant attachment, which is the art of saying no, just so that over time you can learn the art of saying yes again. And that's, I think, where we're going to end up.
Evolutionary psychology is pretty clear that there's a good and bad, there's a right and wrong, there's a normal and an abnormal. Psychology as a field has been twisted
Male and
to
female.
Psychology has been twisted now to say, well, nothing is ever normal, everything is okay, and everything is wonderful. And we need to get back to the actual functional roots of existence. Like
ultimately, evolution doesn't care what we think. No. Neither does biology.
There's a right and
neither
wrong.
does physics. Right. Everything
it
is
works or it doesn't.
Exactly. Miyamoto Musashi said, reality will not bend to your will. You can either bend to it or break.
Correct.
Something along those lines. And you can either kneel to it or die. And that's the truth. We need enough people saying, that's wrong, that's evil, get away from me, right? We need more of that.
Exactly.
All right. We are doing that. We do that with our work, but I'm hoping that at some point we can begin to institutionalize it, because this is what we have institutionalized right now, is that dissolution that comes at this level, to be whatever and be yourself, and they're not learning anything. I would love to see media and education start to teach kids these things. Like
fighting the system is very hard, and when the system's against you, It is brutal and grueling. Hopefully at some point we can begin shifting the system to work for us.
And we'll start by, what we're doing now, right? What you guys are doing now through your channels and your platforms is you guys are collecting knowledge, and that knowledge now is always infinitely accessible. It's not going to disappear anywhere because there's so many copies that exist. And I think over time, as more and more people get exposed to it and make their decision, then that knowledge can become more systematized and more structured and eventually institutionalized into something that's, the next iteration of it. So guys, thank you so much. This was a fantastic conversation. We have to drop off in about a minute or two, but Homath, this was really cool. You're a cool guy. And man, I wish you the best in that journey. The attachment journey is a very, very painful one. I understand it, but don't lose hope. I think there is a lot there for you.
I have a lot to do if it doesn't work out, so don't worry about
I'll keep you busy, right?
The mission is the life force itself for most men.
Awesome.
Wonderful. Since we are going to be hosting this on our channels as well, Homath, could you tell our audience for the podcast where they can find you, please?
Yeah, you can find me, search for Homath, HOE_MATH, and that is YouTube and TikTok, although I haven't posted there in a while, but I will be back, and X or Twitter. And you can also go to linkter.ee/HOE_MATH, and that has all my stuff. That is the book that I sell, and Selfmax.ai, which is my program. And you can find everything about me there.
Amazing. Adam, where can we find you and what do you offer?
Yes, I'm Adam Lane Smith, the attachment specialist. You can find me on adamlanesmith.com, where I do have the attachment repair program where I walk men and women in about 90 days or in 6 months, if you want the expanded program, through repairing your attachment challenges, building that community, and building your relationships. It's good for individuals or couples. I have video courses on there as well if you want to learn at your own pace. And me and my team of certified coaches are ready to help you do that process.
And actually, the courses and the program are on sale. We're just finishing Black Friday, Cyber Monday, and they're on sale for up to 60%. I think it's ending today. We might extend it to tomorrow, but we're not sure yet. So jump on it fast. That's probably the best deal you guys will get all year.
Wonderful. I'm also on YouTube at Attachment Adam, where I have over 1,000 long and short videos now now on my channel as well.
Quite extensive.
Andre, where can we find you?
Yeah, I'm at Andrei Korokov on Instagram. And if you guys want to learn more about what we do with content creators like Adam, that's veritascreative.media is the place to go. So
thank you so much for this conversation, Homath. This was wonderful.
Thank you too. Yes,
thank you,
I had a
Homath.
good time. Thank you so much.
All right. Thank you. We'll see you around.